To go to Parliament House, Canberra now and catch up with the Treasurer, Josh Frydenberg. Thanks for joining us, Treasurer. Appreciate your time at this particular time. You have just announced today, less than 2 hours ago, what must be the largest single government intervention in the economy since the Second World War. This is such a radical move. Explain the rationale.
Well, extraordinary times call for extraordinary measures, and what we have seen is millions of Australians receive the economic impact of the coronavirus. Many people have lost their jobs, many more people will lose their jobs. Many businesses have closed. And what's really important now is that we reduce the cost to employers of employing people and that we maintain the connection between employers and employees so that we can get to the other side and that we can recover faster than ever when the coronavirus has passed. That's what was our motivation today, and as you say, it's the biggest package, $130 billion over the next 6 months, but I think it will provide a great deal of relief to millions of Australians.
Now, most of these workers have been laid off by their companies because there's no work to do. Such has been the crash by putting the economy into hibernation effectively. So are these workers then expected to do some work, or are they effectively going to be paid by their employer to wait it out at home?
Well, you're right that in some cases they've been stood down and the businesses have closed, and that's where the health restrictions have led to those businesses not being able to trade. So through no fault of the business owner, no fault of the employee, there hasn't been a job to do, and that's particularly prevalent in the tourism space, in the retail space, in the hospitality space. So this will maintain that relationship. Instead of having them go through Centrelink, they're now going to continue to be paid by their employer. There'll be other cases, Chris. For example, the cafe that is now doing takeaway as opposed to having people come and be customers within the restaurant or the cafe. They will continue to operate, and those employees will continue to work.
And if they can be overstaffed with this subsidy, then so be it. They can be overstaffed for a while. And the good news is, you get through this, everybody goes back to work and we power out of this. But some companies won't make it. Some businesses won't restart. What happens in those circumstances?
Well, again, we are working to support as many companies as possible. This is the latest initiative from the government, but as you know, we had 2 earlier tranches. The first tranche involved, for example, wage subsidies that were provided to apprentices, as well as support for small businesses with cash payments linked to their wages bill, and also other investment incentives. The second package of measures was even broader and larger in scope, saw us co-guaranteeing with the banks small business loans up to $250,000, giving people early access to their superannuation. So we've had comprehensive packages of measures. They've all been different in nature and in scope, but we really are fighting a war on 2 fronts, the health crisis and the economic crisis, and we will do everything within our power to help Australians in their time of need.
We think about 100,000 people have already lost their jobs. The suggestion from the numbers involved in this measure from you would suggest that you would have expected, without intervention, certainly the number of unemployed would have topped at least 1 million, perhaps double that.
Well, the numbers are huge, and you've seen in particular sectors like retail, hundreds of thousands of people lose their jobs, and that's an inevitability following the various health-related restrictions that have put limits on social gatherings. So we'll continue to support the sectors of the economy who are most affected. Some sectors are actually doing pretty well at the moment. For example, in the mining industry, commodity prices have held up pretty strongly. We've also seen supermarkets and chemists do well. Some of the health sectors, some of the players in the health sectors are obviously doing well at this time.
Some of them indeed are employing people. That's great news. But just a couple of months ago, you were looking at protecting what might have been a thin surplus. In this move today, obviously, what you've done is surrender any chance of a surplus for at least a decade, I would suggest. To tell us about the concern you have. We all know what you're trying to do here, and we all support looking after our fellow Australians, but we will be paying for this decades from now.
We'll certainly be paying back the debt for a long time to come. But we also brought back the budget into balance for the first time in 11 years, and we actually got the books back on track. That was really important in giving us more financial firepower here in Australia than is available to many other countries. Our debt to GDP levels are about a quarter of what it is in the United States or in the United Kingdom, about 1/7 here in Australia of what it is in Japan. There'll be many other countries, Chris, that despite the real pain from the economic pain from the coronavirus, they will not have the flexibility to respond as we have. So we've taken this opportunity to support the economy.
Just quickly, two issues I want to get you on. We're nearly out of time. One is the public sector. Public sector employees are the only people shielded from any of this. Are you considering any sort of a wages cut to share the pain?
Well, as you know, there's been a freeze on what were normal increases in wages, and obviously that reflects the difficulties of the time. But you're right, people in the public service have more job security than many others in the private sector. And like I said, there are some, though, in the private sector who are also doing pretty well in what are broadly difficult times.
Could it come to a situation where we take money from those who have jobs to help share the pain in this crisis?
Oh, look, I'm not going to speculate on that. What I do know is that my focus has been on delivering a range of measures to support the economy at its most trying and difficult time.
Just finally, Teresa, there's so much news around today. Every day, the world is changing so quickly. Your announcement this morning on strict new controls on foreign investment, I think that'll be applauded around the country at a time of such economic vulnerability. But clearly, this would be targeted primarily at China to ensure that they don't take advantage here from the virus that they've inflicted on us.
Well, our move today is all about protecting the national interest, ensuring that there is no threshold when it comes to these foreign investment proposals, and that they all come across my desk and get Treasury's assessment, because that is important, particularly at a time when we are seeing the market value of many companies under severe pressure. So we want to stop predatory behaviour that is not in the national interest. So we'll obviously take into account national security grounds, the character of the investor, tax and competition issues, but our focus is on the national interest. Australia's been well served, Chris. You know it very well from foreign investment. 1 in 10 Australian jobs are with companies that have benefited directly from foreign investment. But that's not to say we shouldn't put a ruler through all those foreign investment proposals and make sure that they get the right scrutiny and that they are in the national interest.
But China is cash rich, and we know that they lied to their own people and to the world about this virus. It would be the epitome of poor form if they could come in here and take advantage of that situation, surely.
Well, we're going to let no country or no company come and take advantage of us with these strict rules that were put in place, because we welcome foreign investment, but we also, at this time, are going to put an extra layer of scrutiny over it.